Please lie on the floor and make yourselves comfortable. And as always, begin by just scanning. How am I relating to the floor in this moment? Am I allowing the support of the floor for my body in this moment? And really notice, instead of what's contacting the floor, this time let's take a few moments to notice what's not contacting the floor. Like, notice how your neck curves away from the floor. Notice the very first point in the back of your head that stops touching the floor, how that goes into the neck, and attending to the very first point in the spine, where you reconnect with the support of the floor. Feeling the shoulder blades, the right side and the left side, and noticing when do the shoulders, the upper back part of the shoulders, begin to not touch the floor. Where's that part where they're just beginning to maybe roll a little forward or just curve upwards towards the neck? And following with your attention the support beneath the shoulder blades, the ribs below the shoulder blades, the spine, and just noticing, is there a point where your lower back begins to curve away from the floor? For some of you it might stay in contact, but there's less pressure. For others of you, there may actually be a whole area of curvature, which is normal and natural, where it's not touching at all. So notice that point where that low back lifts away lightly from the floor, and where it comes in contact again, usually at the sacrum, that center bone of the pelvis. And you can notice which parts of your legs are touching. For some of us, maybe we don't have as much contact behind our knees or our ankles. Which parts of your heels are in contact? And if your arms are resting at your sides, again, you can notice what parts touch the floor. Maybe your wrists lift a little away from the floor, and parts of your fingers. And then please bend your knees up one at a time. And just find that place for your knees where they're neither flopping in or wanting to flop out. And your feet feel really stable. You might just gently press through your feet once or twice and just really feel, are those feet that are grounded and supporting me? And maybe continue lightly pressing and releasing and seeing if you can feel how that pressing through your feet begins to influence a sensation and possibly a movement in your pelvis. And if you've done a pelvic tilt before, you may notice a similarity where you press through your feet, and if things are soft in your abdomen, your pelvis can begin to roll, but not because you're contracting your abdominal muscles, but just because the pelvis responds to the feet and the legs, the hips, and begins to roll, and that arch in the low back flattens towards the floor as you press, and the arch returns as you release the pressure through your feet. And just pause for a moment, listening to your body, making sure you're not overdoing it. In Feldenkrais, less is more. Maybe that's true in life. Letting life unfold before us without so much effort. And then please return to the movement, pressing your feet and letting your pelvis roll up and down. This time imagining as if you were lying on a clock. And as you roll your pelvis up, pressing through your feet, you're rolling up towards the 12 o'clock. You're putting more pressure where the 12 o'clock would be. And as your pelvis rolls down, there's neutral, and then you can find a way to let it roll down a little further towards your tailbone, and you're rolling down towards the 6 o'clock on the clock. So just feeling, what's that like between 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock? Noticing how straight your line is. Does it curve a little to the right or to the left of center? Maybe you notice that one foot presses a little more firmly, creating a little arc in your line. Just noticing your own natural asymmetries. And then pause for a moment. And then let's imagine that 3 o'clock is basically underneath your right hip and 9 o'clock is beneath your left hip. So what do you need to do to go from side to side to roll your pelvis right and left from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock? Just gently find your way to that side-to-side movement. Can you keep your knees pointed relatively towards the ceiling as you do this? So there's one way of rolling your pelvis, which is just taking your knees left and right. And then there's another way, which is really pressing through your foot so that opposite foot rolls the pelvis to one side. You might press through your left foot and the left side of your pelvis lifts a little bit, rolling you to the right or over to 3 o'clock. And you might press through your right foot, allowing the right side of your pelvis to lift a little bit, rolling your pelvis over to the left to the 9 o'clock. And again, just noticing how smooth is this line. Are there little rough spots? Notice also if your breath is free, your jaw and tongue are soft, or if that effort of focusing and doing it well causes tension in other areas of your body. Maybe. And as you go from left to right, from 3 to 9, just a couple more times, notice what else is happening in your trunk, your spine, your ribs. Does the pressure change from left to right beneath your shoulder blades? So there's that narrowing of the attention to the clock, 3 and 9. The pelvis, then opening it up, the feet, the knees, the ribs, the spine, even the neck and the head might be responding in small and subtle ways. And then just let yourself pause next time you come to the middle. Let your legs down. If the back of your pelvis is getting sore in any way, just from the rolling, feel free to lie on your side for a moment. Always listening, always taking care. We're fairly conditioned to not listen, to not take care, to do what the teacher says at the expense of our own needs. It's a wonderful conditioning that our school system puts us through. So hopefully as we become adults we can learn to be both engaged in our world while listening and caring for ourselves. Once again, please bend your knees up, finding that stable place for your feet. And a couple times, go from 6 to 12, feeling the movement in your pelvis, the pressure through the soles of your feet. Notice through your feet, do you tend to put more pressure through your heels or through the balls of your feet? You might play with that a few times, doing one or the other, or trying to spread it out through the whole sole of the foot. We don't want any part of the sole left out, do we? And also noticing the influence up your spine, into your neck and head. And then a couple times shifting from 3 to 9, side to side. And then see if you can shift, instead of going from 3 to 9, can you go from 4 to 10? So it's still a straight line, but 4, which is on the right side, unless it's different for you, is a little below 3, and 10, which is on the left side, is a little above 9. What's it like to go from 4 to 10? While breathing. I'm sure none of you were holding your breath, but I did see some serious concentration happening out there. And be playful. You know, if it's quote unquote hard or difficult, there's nothing wrong with you or wrong with it, the movement. It's just an interesting, challenging opportunity. Be curious. Do less, do more. And then shift to 8 and 2. So we were doing 4 and 10, a little down on the right, a little up on the left. So we're going to kind of do the opposite of that, 8 and 2, a little down. Well, I don't know, now I'm getting confused. Down on the right, up on the left. The other way around. Do the opposite. And just pause for a moment. And then can you go 8 to 2 and back to 8, and then up that little bit of the circle to 10, down to 4, up to 10, little bit down the circle to 8, 2, Maybe next time you're at 2, you go down to 4, but just kind of playing with that X, that wide X. Once in a while doing that, noticing the soles of your feet, the movements of your spine, all the way up to your neck and head, beneath your shoulder blades. Good. And then just rest. Noticing the mind might start to get busy and think and plan. Just come back to the body, to the groundedness, to the sensations of the floor. Such a friend this body can be to bring us to the moment of now. The only place life is really happening. All the rest is in our imagination, the past and the future. So coming back to life in this moment, bend your knees up, please. And see if you can play with the X that takes you from 7 to 1. Play with that a few times. Right? It's like the same, but it's not the same, right? It's an X, it's left and right, it's up and down. And when you're ready, you can play with 5 and 11. And you can go back and forth between 5 and 11, 7 and 1. You might find one of them you just have a preference for. Maybe it's a little lighter or easier or more straight, more linear. The other one, that angle, that diagonal, just not as pleasant for whatever reason. Just be curious about what's different when you do 7 to 1 than when you do 5 to 11, other than that you're pushing through different feet. But the deeper sense of the experience and the movement. Good, and pause for a minute. Maybe bring your knees up to your chest just to make sure no unnecessary tension is building up in your low back. Just a nice little stretch. Maybe roll a little bit left and right. There you go. Let the floor massage your low back as you do that. And then just rest a little bit. Okay, come back onto your backs, please, bending your knees up. And just in this up and down way, go around the circle, starting with 12 to 6, a couple times, and then 1 to 7, a couple times, whatever feels light and easy for you, and then shifting 2 to 8, eventually 3 to 9, 4 to 10, 5 to 11, and eventually back to 6 and 12. And if you're up for it, after you get back to 6 and 12, then go around the circle in this way, but the other way. So you'll go 11 to 5, 10 to 4, just taking your time, feeling, just relaxing into it, nice and soft. Till eventually you come back to 6 and 12. Whenever you get back there, just let yourself take a full rest. So I'll know when everybody has completed that. Just listening into your body, that center of gravity in the pelvis, center of the chi and the hara and the dantian, the source of all power by pretty much all traditions that I know of. Except for maybe the Western business tradition where the center of power is in the head. So when you're ready, just take your time and roll fully onto your side and find your way up to standing and just begin to take some time and feel the influences of this lesson now. Does it shift your attention and moving, standing, walking?